There may be some other people that filter in, and I will let them in as we go, just like this one. Okay. So occasionally I will have to pause and let people into the room, and but we're going to get going. So this was our Q2 kickoff, getting us going for the second quarter of the year, and we had a nice panel. And it was Rocky Melendez did first-time homebuyers. Satrina Young was our panelist for investors. Shoshana Socher was our panelist for sellers. And Debbie Garson was our panelist for luxury. And we had a section that was a market and mortgage update with Michael Rapaski and Sean Hadley. And then our keynote speaker was Chris Moscarino, who is out of KW Elevate, and he has a team out there and is also on his way to becoming a bold coach. He is a Quantum Leap instructor for Keller Williams University, and he gave us a talk on mindset and your big why. So I want to first start out by thanking our sponsors. Cross Country Mortgage was there in the room. We had America's Preferred Home Warranty, who wasn't in the room, and also Keller Williams Greater Metropolitan Management. Jessica Ivins was there with us. Ohio Real Title was there in the room, and Pillar to Post provided coffee for us in the morning. And then Josh Legal Help was one of our sponsors, as well as Your Cleveland TC with Elizabeth Kosminski. So to get going, we're going to start with the panelists. So it was riches in the niches was the topic. Okay. If you've got some things going on in the background, please mute yourself. So we were talking about riches in the niches, and we'll start with Debbie Garson. She was the one closest to me, and she started the panel. And so actually it was, they went around and said who they were, but we'll start with Debbie. And one of the things Debbie talked about was growing into luxury. And she didn't start in luxury. And a lot of people want to know, how do you get into luxury? How do you do it? And Debbie said a lot of her clients were the original clients that she had that were $200,000 home buyers or $150,000 home buyers that she has stayed with over time. And one of the things we talk about in Bold is, how much is a client worth? And when you think about the life of the client, Debbie has been an agent for long enough. I think she said she got licensed in 1978. So when you think about the clients that she had originally that were $150,000, $200,000 buyers, those same clients have now gone on to $1 million buyers and $1 million sellers. Those homes have grown in value over time, because if you think about a home that cost $100,000 or $200,000 back in 1980, that home now could be $500,000, $400,000, $600,000. So Debbie's, thing was grow with the clients. She grew into becoming a luxury agent because her clients grew into luxury clients. So really pay attention to how you treat your clients. And that's what Debbie's really good at, is paying attention to detail and treating every client like a $1 million client. And that's actually how she got her first $1 million client. Was she was showing a property and sold it to a young couple, and their parents found out how well she did with them, and how her attention to detail was, and how great she was as an agent, and they had her come out and look at their property, and that's how she got her first $1 million property. So it's how you treat people, your attention to detail, and grow with the clients. So when you think about what your clients are, think about what they're really worth. How many transactions will you get over that life? How will their value grow? And so treat everyone, even if they're not a $1 million client now, they may be. As long as you stay in the business and keep consistent in what you're doing, that's a way to grow into luxury. And so that's what Debbie was talking about. And her other thing was staging. She said that as someone who's doing a lot of business in staging, she's a professional stager as well. One of her clients had a home that had really old furniture, and she said, let's do an estate sale, get the furniture out. And she virtually staged. She took it off the market, virtually staged it, and got the furniture out, and it sold within 3 days. So making sure that you present the property in a way that shows it in its best light. That's what you're doing for your clients, is making sure you.
So
Yes.
Like hangout.
Yeah, I was going to.
Okay, I don't think they're talking to us. So, staging and virtually staging to make sure, because pictures are the first opportunity you have to sell the home. And so when you're not getting those views, maybe it's something that you're doing. So she had new pictures shot, staged it, and the home sold. So before we move on to the next one, any questions about luxury and what we talked about yesterday?
You may have anything she's saying.
Okay, I'm going to keep this somewhat interactive. So if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat that we can address. But that was Debbie Garson and luxury, talking about how to get into luxury, what it takes, and treating clients with the respect and as if they were $1 million client. Because your $50,000 client, $100,000 client, they can be $1 million client over the life of their time with you. If you have them early, most people stay in their homes around 7 to 10 years. So if you're in the business as long as Debbie, she's been in it since 78, those clients represent lots of transactions for you and also referrals. So next up, we had Shoshana Socher. And Shoshana was there to talk about sellers. And one of the things that Shoshana is really, really good at, and when you talk about riches in the niches, Shoshana is really, really good at working her database.
Really?
So when you talk about database, that's one thing that she focuses on, is making sure that she's contacting the people in her database, that they're feeling connected to her, that there's a touch plan, that she's getting out in the community. And when you talk about staying front and center and top of mind, she said a quote that I really liked, and she said, "Niche till it bleeds." And what that meant to her is she actually got fired recently from a buyer. And the reason, and she had to accept it, it hurt. And at the same time, when she really thought about what her focus is, and her focus is really on listings, should she have even had that buyer in the first place? Because if her focus is on listings, then a buyer is not part of that focus. So she said, niche till it bleeds, till it hurts to do anything else but what you want to do. And so she had to eliminate all other things. So when she got fired, she had to accept, like, hey, that's not where my strength is. And I'm going to focus on my strength. So when you're looking at listings, she does, she's gotten clients from Facebook tours. It's the rollout that, really attracts people to what Shoshana does. She takes the time to really prepare the listing, make sure she has a nice marketing plan for it, and rolls it out in a way that it gets attention from other people who say, I want you to come do that same thing for me. So, she also talked about community. And when you think of community, hers is the Jewish community. And she really focuses on that community. And community can mean a lot of things. It could be your bike riding group. It could be your gym buddies. It could be an art group that you're a part of. So when you think about community, what does it mean to you to really be a part of your community and engage in it? Who here has a community that they're very much engaged in and get business from? Now I know Doxy's in this room, and I'm gonna call her out because I know Doxy has a community that she gets 30% of her business from. Because she networks.
Well,
Nobody? Everybody's
Doxy disappeared.
Doxy disappeared. Everybody's quiet now. Let's see, is she still here? Oh, she's still here. She might be having trouble taking herself off mute. So, well, when you think about community,
you were correct. I was having trouble. Yes, 30% of referrals from other agents. I get a lot of that. Yes.
So that's a great community in of itself, an agent community. So Doxy, when she and Lisa go to our events, the family reunion, mega camps, those kind of things, they are there on a mission. And that mission is to build their referral business. And they do an excellent job at it. So when you're in your communities, whether it's a school group, whether it's your local community, take the time to really be engaged. And when you get asked to sponsor something, say it's something at your church where they ask you to put something on the church bulletin or something like that where you have to pay for it, sometimes being engaged and giving to that community is an investment into your marketing, because investing in the community and supporting it means that that community will then come back and support you. And it may not be a dollar per dollar return. And, you know, in real estate, usually it's you get a higher return on your investment as long as you're investing in something that you believe in and, you know, that you're true to, because people can sniff out if you're being false or fake. You know, don't go to a community that you're not part of and, you know, fake it, because they'll sniff that out, you know. So that's the thing. Be a part of the community, be active, support it, be sincere. And, you know, advertising can also look like support. So when we talked about investors, Trina, you know, has been, she started out with REO, which is real estate owned, which she was doing when banks were sending her lists of properties, and she was going out and doing that. The turning point was coming to Keller Williams and really growing that business, moving from just kind of an order taker to someone who was actively working with the investors. And when you work with investors, her first statement was, know what kind of investor they are, know their goals, what they're actually looking to do, and then most importantly, know your market. Know what it is that, know your numbers, know, you know, how to talk to the investor in the language that they know. And the language that investors know are numbers and money. You know, they're not emotionally tied to properties. They're logically tied to them. Will it give me a return on my investment? Does that make sense to everyone? And like I said, feel free to throw it in the chat. I don't necessarily want this to be just me talking. You know, it's a small enough group that we can talk to each other.
Are they having difficulty finding investment properties now? I would think that's a challenge.
You know, yes and no. The conversation has moved slightly with investors. There's still a lot of investment properties coming on the market. I mean, John Murchison is putting packages on like nobody's business. He's got another 19 about to come on pretty soon. Wow. So, you know, they're out there, and the conversation is just different for the buyers versus the sellers. Buyers, the rates are different, but you've got DSCR loans now. So now you can use the rents as the, you know, as the qualifier on the mortgage. So there are lots of different programs out there that you can be using that talk to the lenders, and, you know, there's plenty of investment money still flowing in. If you look in Command, you can see where the dollars are coming from, where the migration patterns are. And the biggest amount of money coming into Cleveland is coming out of California.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So investors are still really active in the market. So they're out there, and it's just a matter of what your investment horizon is. The people who have a longer investment horizon, they have a better view on what's available, even with the rates that are, that we have now. Mm-hmm. Because as long as your investment horizon is further out, you know that you're going to get a great return on that investment, even if you're paying a little bit more for it now.
Right.
So, investing, let me see what other notes I had. Advertise the sales. So she said a couple really key things that Satrina pointed out was, if you don't put it out there, they're not going to see it. So even if it's a $50,000 or $20,000 property, advertise that you're selling it, because investors are looking at it. Throw it up on Facebook, throw it up wherever you can, because they're looking. And so if they're seeing that you're active in investments, they'll start reaching out to you. And I know, talking to John, he wasn't on the panel, and he's really big in investors, and it's the work he's been doing with other investors that are drawing investors to him. So, don't be a secret agent when it comes to investing. Let people know what you're doing, and then that way they can see it. Don't be embarrassed that it was a $20,000 sale or a $30,000 sale, because the people who are out there, pulling the trigger on 10, 15 of those, they're seeing, hey, this person knows what they're doing and can get these deals done and at a good price. So the other part to it is, she talked about, make sure you're calling them. She lost a client who bought a $200,000 property because she didn't reach out. And investors aren't going to look for you, as she put it. You have to be reaching out to them, because they're transactional. And they're going to say, okay, if this agent's not going to help me, there's going to be, I'm going to go with the agent where I found the property, because they're going to keep looking whether you're helping them or not, because their goal is to make money, and they're not going to stop doing that because you're not calling them. So, you have to call them. You have to reach out. You have to stay in communication and let them know that you're their person when they need help. After investors, we had first-time home buyers, and that was Rocky Melendez out of the Chase Group. And first-time buyers, he talked about a lot of the same things: attention to detail, especially on the buyer consultation. And that's a really big thing, because first-time home buyers usually don't have a lot of knowledge about the process. So your job first is to be an educator, to help them understand the nuances of what they're going to experience and set their expectations up front, because it's going to help you to have their expectations and set those and educate them in the beginning, and have the long conversation first. That way, every other conversation is easier and makes sense. So I'm not sure who's, I think it's Jason. Jason, I think you've got some background noise happening. So if you can mute yourself, that'd be great. All right, there you go. Thank you. So that was first-time home buyers, and he said place value ads. So when you are putting up posts, it's not about, it's the 80-20 principle. Only 20% of what you put up should be selling real estate. 80% should be your personal stuff, and also value ads, things to get them to reach out to you. So information, post about what the rates are, post about what to be doing in the home process. The goal when you're marketing, because remember, prospecting is you reaching out to them. Marketing is for them to reach out to you. And so when you're putting up posts, think about it that way, and that your job is to provide value, so that when they see the post, they want to reach out to you, because you're the one giving them the most. So be of value to the people that you work with. Talk to the people consistently. Consistency, there's consistency builds awareness. And if you want to stay top of mind, that's how you do it. And a takeaway from that was also that the MLS, a lot of people look at it as just an expense, but it's also can be an investment in knowledge. The difference between us as agents and anyone else out there who has Zillow and all the other stuff is that the MLS has all of the historical data. So when you're thinking about like, how do you frame it? How do you look at what's happened in the community? How do you do your CMAs? It's because the MLS has the historical data, and you can use that as a tool to help you. Because if you've got say you've got a buyer that wants to live in a neighborhood, you can use the MLS and say, okay, I just want to see homes that sold, 7 to 10 years ago. And then you have that list of people who, on average, those are the people who are probably ready to move. So use it, circle prospect on listings, use the tools that you have. Any questions or ahas from that, from the riches and niches? And I know we've got a truncated amount of time. I'm taking 3 hours and shrinking it into 1. So, any questions, any ahas that you got from that you heard? Feel free to throw it in the chat if you don't want to take yourself off mute. I see everyone's still on mute. MLS data, yeah. And that's the thing, MLS data, using that to not only help your clients, because what a great way to pull out sellers as well. When you can say, okay, these people are 7 to 10 years, send them a letter, send a letter out saying, I have a buyer that's willing to pay from this range, that's in this range. Would you be willing to sell your house? Really simple letter. And at the same time, if a seller called you back, say it doesn't work for that buyer, you still have a person who's raised their hand and said, I'm willing to sell my house. So now you have a listing and you still have a buyer. So you could either get both sides of that deal or separate deals altogether. So it's a great tool, and I think it's underutilized in a lot of ways by agents. Any other ahas? Because remember, ahas are agents helping agents. So you may think something that you heard, and it may be really valuable to someone else in this room. Oh, another one that I didn't touch on was if you're thinking about taking on a farming area, or being the expert of, instead of being the expert in all of a neighborhood, be the expert on a street. Door knock that street. If you sold a house on that street, really get the information on the street, meet the neighbors, talk to them. And then if there's ever a need, you are now the person that they think of. So even if you start small, think sub neighborhoods or streets, really focus in and, get that niche, because if you can lock down a street, then maybe you can lock down the next block, and so on and so forth, because you can grow from there and start small. A lot of people set really high, lofty goals. And when you do that, a lot of times you run into the problem of you're not hitting your goal. So when that happens, you feel like you're failing. So set a smaller goal. Set something that you can hit and give yourself those wins. So say, I'm going to be the expert of these 3 houses. I'm going to know everything I need to know about that. I'm going to know the people in it. I'm going to be their real estate agent. I'm going to be their expert. And, set that goal. Set a 3-house goal, and then move it to 6, and then grow into where you have the whole block. And if you can control the whole block of a neighborhood where you're the person, then not only do you have them, you also have any referral that they may have because you are their expert. So be the expert for a smaller subset. You know, same thing with those communities that we talked about. All right, so we're gonna move on. It's 6, 7 o'clock now almost. So we're gonna go into the market and the mortgage update. So I assume that everyone can see this screen. Did everybody see it change? Give me some thumbs up, yes, something in the chat. All right, thank you. Okay, so this is the market update. So we're gonna take a higher elevation view than what we did yesterday. We kind of dove in pretty deep, and we're gonna kind of skim the surface. So who here has heard people talking about the crash? And you know, the thing saying that maybe it's time to quit the mortgage business or the real estate business, that things are going bad. I mean, how many of us have been hearing that, spoken on the news, friends talking about it? You know, is that out there? Come on, there's only like 10 of us in this room. There we go. All right. So when we're hearing that, our job is to make sure that we're the expert that they need. So mortgage earnings are really joined at the hip with loan volume. You know, and one of the things that we're finding is there's been a drop. You know, the mortgage volume has already dropped 50 to 60% at many banks, with more decreases likely to come. So when you're talking about huge drops like that, you know, that's big news for our industry. So one of the reasons that it's happening right now, and I'm sure we've all heard this word, is inflation. So one of the things that they did yesterday was they made sure that everyone in the room knew what inflation was and how it worked. So we're going to jump into that right now. So inflation, said simply, is too much money chasing too few goods. So elaborating on that is there's too much money in the market, and there's not enough things to spend that money on. So too much money chasing too few goods, which means what happens when there's low supply, high demand? Prices go up or down?
Up.
Up, exactly. So that's inflation. Prices go up because there's too much demand, not enough supply. And are we seeing that in houses right now?
Yes, we are.
And have we been seeing it?
Yes.
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 All right. So how does it impact mortgage rates? So when we talk about inflation, so this is inflation. Inflation drives mortgage rates, because as a lender looks at it, and let's say a lender has to set a loan right now at 6.5%. Let's say right now your lender is saying 6.5%. But if we know inflation is going up and the price is going up, then the cost of money is going up. So that 6.5% in like year 3 or year 5, the rate could be 7.5%. So now the lender has set this loan at 6.5%, and they're losing money over time, because now the cost of money has gone up, and over that time, over the life of the loan, you're talking a 30-year loan, 15-year loans, over time, the price of the money has gone up. So they're actually losing money on the interest. They're not making what they need to make to cover the loan. So now lenders, because they know inflation is rising, they have to raise rates to keep in lockstep with inflation. And so what you see here is this is over, you know, July 2020 through 22, there was this QE period, and that's quantitative easing. And so what they were doing was the government was putting in money into the market to keep, to keep spending high. And so that's why you see this line here, which is the mortgage rate. That's why it was so low here. Now you see a spike in inflation right here. And because of the QE, because they were, the government was pumping money in, they were saying, okay, maybe it's okay, maybe it's okay. And then it was like, oh no, it's, it really is an inflation period. So now we finally caught up, and the rate is actually higher than the inflation rate right now. And you'll see it started to go back down. So, once the inflation started going back down, the rate started coming back down. So as you see, rates follow inflation. So it dipped down here and then started to go up following the inflation rate, and then followed the inflation rate down. Now, the 8 major groups of the consumer price index, and this is what inflation is kind of based off of. It's the CPI. And so there's what's called the core CPI. And what that means is consumer price index determines inflation, but core CPI is your discretionary spending. So it's everything that's not food or energy, because, people have to feed themselves. They have to, stay warm. So everything else that is discretionary spending is what's considered core CPI, and that's consumer price index. And so when you look at that, there's what they do is they say, this is the core CPI since 2020. And as you see, it's gone up considerably, and it goes up and then down and up and down. It's definitely gone up since the pandemic. It was kept low, and then you're spending. So think about all the money that was hitting that market, all the money that was being pumped in. Here we were all locked in our houses, and here we got free and started spending. So that's the core CPI since 2020. And as you can see, it's dramatically higher. Now, usually you want it, I believe you want around 2%, and I may be wrong. I'm not a lender, and I think that's what they said. And the way they figure out what the CPI is, what the consumer price index is they take the monthly consumer price index. So each of these determines a month and what that consumer price index is for that month. And where do you see the highest consumer price index? Where's the highest CPI?
June.
22. So almost a year ago. So we're right here where it's some of the highest CPI numbers that we've seen. And so what they do, how they determine the consumer price index, is they take it from the last 12 months. So it's a rolling 12-month period. And what they do is they add all these up to equal the consumer price index. So this will be that 5.9 or whatever. When you add all this up, it'll equal that. Now, when we roll into July, what's going to happen? The highest CPI numbers are going to drop off. And so if you're saying that if CPI is high, then, rates are high. So what happens when, 2%, thank you, Jason. So what happens when the core price, consumer price index goes down? If rates go up when it goes up, what happens when it goes down?
Rates go down.
Exactly. So the anticipation is that when those roll off over the summer, we're going to have lower consumer price index, which means that we're going to have lower rates. So if we have lower rates moving into the summer, what's that going to trigger to buyers that have been scared right now because rates are shooting up? Are there going to be more buyers in the market or less? Are there going to be more people looking to spend money?
More.
I'd say yes.
Right. So this is the sold value total for the United States. Now, we're on the rise for the year, which is, pretty standard. But we're also down year over year, because this is where we were this time last year. And this is where we are now. And again, this is total United States. So we're down 3%. Last couple months, we were actually up. We were up 2%, and now we're down 3% year over year. So part of that is rate. Now, when you look at sold prices for homes from 2019 to 22, now we can say, okay, here's March of 22 right here, but look at all the previous Marches and how high that price has gone. So even though units are down, we are still looking at potentially the fourth highest volume ever recorded in real estate history. So even though we're down in units, prices it's still going to be one of the best years in real estate history in volume. So sold value total for the United States, down 3%. Now, this is Michael's prediction. He's saying that we're going to go to about 40%, here. So 0.40% here, 0.4 along this line over the summer. So if we level out, so if we drop here and then level out over the summer, that's definitely going to mean that rates are going to go down, as the average of these is well below where we have been. So like we said, inflation drives the mortgage rates. And as that's going down, let's look at mortgage rates. So these are the historical averages. So when you look at the last 10 years, say from 2012, yeah, we're higher than the average over the last 10 years because it's been artificially low. Now, when you look at the last 20 years, we're actually below where we were over the last 20 years.
Right.
So then you look at the last 30 years or 50 years. What is that? Yeah. And we're well below that average. So 7.8 is the average rate over the last 50 years. And one of the interesting things is, let's look at 2005 through 2007, right before the mortgage crisis, right? So this was a buying frenzy right here. The whole thing was everybody was out buying, everybody was buying up houses, and look at where the rates were. They were higher than they are right now. So because rates came from up here, everybody thought this was incredible. Like, oh man, we got to get out and we got to buy as much as we can. And it's only because we've seen this in the last 5 years that this scares everyone.
Because a lot of the buyers that are out there only know those low rates.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, I mean, they don't necessarily go back all of those years. So, I mean, they got spoiled and confused, because I agree with you. I mean, the rate, 6% is like in the real world. And for those of us that have been around for a while, is really, a fair rate.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Spoiled.
That's better than my first home.
Right. better. I'm sorry.
And definitely way better than anybody that bought back here in the 80s. So now Michael went a little above and beyond and went all the way back to 1310. And this is rates on loans all the way back from 1310 to the present. So here we are now. This was back in the 80s. Here we are now. And this is what rates have done over time. So, you've got, I won't even begin to go into this because he went a little A little too far into this one. That's what happens when you spend all your time late at night working. You start deep diving into stuff. All right. So we're not going to go into a lot of this, but the Fed funds rate. So again, too much money, too few goods. Now, what this slide actually says is that in the US, out of every $20 spent, $17 is borrowed. So I'll say that again. Out of every $20 spent, $17 is borrowed. So that tells you how much spending is actual spending versus credit. All right, Doxy, thank you. Have a great night. So Fed fund rate is the cost of money, and it's not the mortgage rate. It's just the cost of money. So it's two different things, apples and oranges. So what to expect from the Fed? They're currently at 4.875 after the raise on 3/22. Sean Hadley says to expect an increase to 5.125 on May 3rd. So you're going to see an increase, but then expect a hold on that for until the fourth quarter. So that rate's going to hold. He's expecting that Fed rate to hold until fourth quarter, that they're not going to raise it again until then. So there will be a hold. Now, notice that in the history of Fed hikes since '83, this is the steepest hike we've ever had. So this is how they've hiked the rate back up over all the other, recessions and inflationary periods. This is the steepest hike we've ever had. So you should expect it to level off, because what happens at the top of every one of these is they level off at a certain point. So from 04 to 06, it was a 14-month level. From 15 to 18, it was a 6-month level, 7 months here, 3 months, 1 month from 83 to 84. So expect to level off. Recession. I'm sure a lot of people have been hearing this word. And in our area, it can be scary. But here's the thing. I'm not going to go into the inverted yield curve. That's above my pay grade. So I'm not. That was a Sean Hadley thing, and I appreciate him for it. And talk to your finance professionals. So mortgage rates during recessions. So everything that's highlighted here is a recessionary period. Everything, these dark bands and these little highlighted areas are recessions. So what do you see that happens during that recession? So if we're in a recession now, this is what happens to the rates. What trend do you see during every recession? Which way does the rate go? Up, right, down. So housing is strong during a recession. It appreciates. So it still appreciates during a recession, and people need to move. There's demotion, relocation, marriage, death, birth, all those things. Life events necessitate real estate events. So if housing is appreciating and rates are going down and homes still need to be sold, is that a good market?
Yeah.
All right. So, and also during recessions, year over year housing increases. So there's only been I think 2 recessions where prices have gone down dramatically. I guess 3. So where they've gone down dramatically. Every other one, home prices have gone up during the recession. So if we're entering into recession, you should expect the home prices to go up, especially during a recession like this one, because as we discussed earlier, if there's low supply and high demand, what happens to price?
Goes up.
Yeah, right. Because the difference between this recession and the one we're looking at now is this recession, there were a lot of homes being built that we had an overabundance of homes moving into that recession. And so that's why prices went down so far, was because there were too many homes, not enough buyers. Now we have too many buyers, not enough homes. So prices go up. So in the last 81 years, housing, it's 73, 7, and 1. 73 years with appreciation, 7 years with depreciation, and 1 year that was flat. So that's the last 81 years in housing. So new home starts, kind of what we were just talking about. You know, you had the run up before this last downturn where we said the housing prices went down dramatically. Look at the new housing starts before it happened. And we have not hit those numbers since. So that's what's going to keep prices up. And right now, we also know that the people buying homes, first-time home buyers, are the largest group of buyers in the market are between 29 and 34 or 35. And so with 33 being the largest, the 33 age being the largest of that group. So what was 33 years ago? It was 1990. These are total births. We had more people born that year than almost any other year. So now you've got the largest number of 33-year-olds in the market right now. They're the largest home buying segment, and we have few homes to sell. So when you look at population data, so again, population by age, the largest group right now is right here at 33, 34. So this is the highest demographic of people buying homes are in the market right now, the highest demographic in history. You know, and from ages 100, and don't ask me why there are more 100-year-olds than 99-year-olds. I don't know why it spikes right there. If they make it past 99, apparently there's a big boom there. So this is your target market right here. So this is the duration of all recessions in the US, all recorded recessions. And what do you see the duration is doing? What's happening to how long a recession lasts in the US? And I don't know why my screen is so, it looks like this was shot through a potato. I can barely read it. But it says it's going down. So, you know, the average time that we're in a recession has gone down. So months, these are months of recession. So this is the outlook for 2023. Units sold down 10%, and that's total United States. But we're actually in a really unique market here. Cleveland is still one of the most affordable places to live. It's also, our housing prices are still not at the national average. So when you look at housing prices not being at the national average and one of the most affordable places to live, I would expect that we're not going to see as much of a drop as the rest of the United States. So Northeast Ohio, there it is. So 3.3% in Northeast Ohio. So again, 10% in the total US and only down 3% here in Ohio, in Northeast Ohio at least. So north and total listings are down 10%.
Yeah, we need inventory.
Right, we need inventory. So the goal is to go out there and find those sellers, because these are things that we can be talking about. If sellers are thinking about making a move, you know, part of their fear has been what? Rate, right? What am I going to buy? Well, you know, I got to pay this high rate. If we know that rates look like they're going to be going down in the near future, then, you know, and here's the thing. Are we going to see 3%, 2% again? Probably not for a long time, if ever. So you know, if we can get it down to 5%,
We're doing good.
that's, you know, that's a great time. And so, and with housing prices up, it's a great time to take advantage of some of that equity. So 3% down in total volume. Now, I showed you that that quote here from American Banker. Is it time to quit the mortgage real estate industry? So here's the thing about this quote is, you know, we're seeing that doom and gloom right now. But this was printed January 8th, 2014. That's what this quote is from. And January 2014 was right before the biggest sales period in US history. More money was made in real estate during that run, that next 5-year run, than ever. You know, so, you know, when you see these doom and gloom forecasts, just think, you know, they might be talking about other places in the US. They're not necessarily talking about here. And a lot of times they're wrong. So that was from 2014. So of course, who you're in business with matters. You know, you're with the #1 real estate company in the world, with the #1 brand in the world, and also the #1 brand in Northeast Ohio, and the #1 market center in all of Keller Williams. So who you're in business with matters. And part of what what we're giving you here is how to talk to your clients. Be the expert. You know, help them understand that it's not that scary, and you're here to help. 1 in 5 homes in the US were sold with a Keller Williams agent in 2022. So here's Mike's predictions. Lower inflation, mortgage rates in the 5s in June, and they'll probably hold for the balance of the year. And again, this is Michael Rapaski's prediction. So, you know, don't hold him to the fire on this one if they don't happen. Recession takes place in the summer. That Northeast Ohio units are down, but low single digits versus national numbers in the double digits or high singles. And homes in Northeast Ohio still appreciate. 2023 is not the beginning of the end. It is the end of the beginning. So this is the end of us getting started on this trend back up.
If we don't remain optimistic, who's going to, right? So we think that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just optimism. I mean, you can look at historical data, and you can also look at, you know, what's happening in Northeast Ohio. And we are in a very unique market. So that was the market update. And to finish off, we had, and I know I have 7 minutes to kind of run through this because I spent a little bit more time on the market update. Chris Mascarino came in and talked about your big why. And part of that, the thing to really get from that was, you know, figuring out how do you live your 200% life. It was from Project U with Adam Hergenrother. And, you know, Adam Hergenrother said that it's 100% physical world, and then there's 100% in the spiritual world. So you have your outer world, which is your goals, your jobs, your, you know, the roles we play, the people, places, things, our careers, our business, our money. And then you have your inner world, where it's your voice, your emotions, and your spiritual heart. So when we look at our goals, they're just that. You know, you got to stop taking yourself so seriously. You know, one of the things he said was, we're on a big piece of rock spinning around the sun in a, you know, solar system that's part of billions just floating in space. You know, don't take yourself so seriously. And, you know, to live that 200% life, you know, you've got the outer world, and goals have a beginning and an end, and they're not your purpose in life, they're your goals. So, you know, the question to ask yourself is, are you a spiritual being having a human experience, are you a human having a spiritual experience? So which are you? Jill's off mute. You gonna say something?
Yes, I like it. I just like it. I can't figure out which I am, but I like that.
Okay. So yeah.
I'm a spirit having a human experience.
Okay. Okay. I feel that same way. I feel that same way. So, you know, the inner world is your voice, your emotions, and your spiritual heart. And so you got to ask, what are you really looking for when you start talking about your big why? Because a goal isn't going to get you there. Money is not going to get you there. None of us in this call actually work for money. We work for what the money can do for us and for the people that we care about. That's what we work for. It's what the money can do for us. It's not for the money itself. No one actually works for the money. You work for the results of what the money does. So, you know, what is it you're really looking for? So when you set your goals and say, I want to make $100,000, ask yourself why. What's important about that? So they came up with play checkmate for life, with life. And that means that every day, you know, look for the way to win in life. And winning in life, he said, is absolute freedom. And what does absolute freedom mean? What would absolute freedom look like?
Financial security.
Financial security. Okay. Is that absolute freedom?
I'm not saying a lot, you know, that it has to be an enormous amount, but just enough to feel secure. So whatever level that is.
Yeah. And one of the things that came up in the room was detachment or acceptance.
Yeah.
When you can accept everything that happens for what it is and face it as reality, then that is the freedom from anything. Because acceptance is freedom, because you're not beholden to anything, because everything else is tied to your ego. So if you have your mind on your money and your money on your mind, you know, can business and spirituality coexist? Yes. Okay, great. And I think that same thing. So it's the journey from the ego to the soul. So, you know, I'll read this. Spiritual practices help us move from identifying with the ego to identifying with the soul. Old age does that for you too. It spiritualizes people naturally. That was from Ram Dass. So the questions they asked in the room is, what is the ego?
What
Is it self-serving?
Yeah, it's you're self-serving. You know, it's something inside of you that, so when you ask yourself questions in your head, or when you're telling yourself that you can't do something, or that, you know, it's not right or whatever, who are you talking to?
Yourself.
But who is it? Are you talking to your ego? Are you talking to you? Like, who's talking? Because you got to ask who's talking and who's listening if you're asking yourself a question.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, don't pay attention to the rest of the things happening in the world. You know, do the small things in front of you. So, like, are you aware of everything that's happening in the world right now? And if you're not, then that person jumping in front of you on the highway, was that really important in the grand scheme of things? Because had it not happened to you and happened to someone else, would you have been aware of it if you hadn't seen it? So if you stay focused on what's on the present and what's happening to you and with you, then you can't be addicted to the role you're playing. You know, you get to experience your life. So you ask yourself, who are you? And I know we're running a little over on time, so if you have to jump off, you can. I'll wrap up as quickly as possible. And so what he went through was, how do you create a plan for the future while embracing the present? And this is where he went in to find your way. So the concept of why is a deeply personal journey born out of pain. And you have the golden circle. So the what is, every organization on the planet knows what they do. So in your business, you know what you do. You know that you're a real estate agent. You know that you know what you do. And you also know how you do it. The question is, very few people know why they do it. And that's usually the most important thing. Now, there's actually a really good video. I don't have it linked right now, but there's a really good video about that where the why comes in that changes everything. Because if you can explain why you do something, it makes a huge difference in how people perceive what you're doing. So say, if you give people your why, then they're more likely to get behind you. So let me get back over here. There we go. So here are 4 steps for discovering your why. So the first one is stories. You want to create 10 to 15 specific, impactful stories from your life. And you'll collect these stories, you'll write them down, and think of 10 to 15 stories from your life that really made a difference to who you are and kind of cultivated you and formed you into who you are today. And then you want to take those stories and you want to identify themes in them. So you'll see themes that come through the story. You'll be able to kind of pick them apart and say, these things kind of correlate. These all work in the same pattern. And then from there, you want to draft and refine. So you want to start drafting and refine what it is these themes are. So you want to focus on the effect you'll leave with others. So you want simple, clear, and actionable. And that's how you start refining your why. I think I clicked a button. There we go. Refining your why. And then you test and refine it. So then you start living with your why. You put it in action and you share it often. So that's testing it to see if that's really your why. Put it out there. And if it doesn't feel true to you, then you'll go back and you'll look at these again, draft and refine it again, and then go back into the testing phase. So goals are a specific desired result that can be completed, but your mission is your life's purpose and always in progress. So goals you can let goals go. You can change goals, things like that. And you can change your mission, but generally, if you find that something is your mission, you're less likely to let it go than you would a goal. Excuse me. So this is your exercise to identify what you feel you're connected to. So first, what topics are you drawn to? What gets you energized? What makes you feel good? What are the topics that you could talk about all day and all night without ever going to sleep because you're that excited about it? And then number 2, what impact do you desire to have on others? So what do you want your life to, what do you want the impact, the legacy you leave? What do you want people to feel after you've left the room or while you're there? How do you want them to perceive you? Or in the world, in your envisioned future. Number 3, which causes are you most passionate about and why? So again, kind of like the topics, but what are the causes? What are the things Yeah, I think we can, we'll probably have an accounting of who was here, and then we can send the slides. Okay. Tracy and Tamara want slides. All right. And so which cause are you most passionate about and why? Then what positive ripple are you moved to set into motion? So what are you going to do to actually make a positive ripple and put that in motion? So what's your activity? So then this is the second part. So that was the first part. Step one, identifying what you feel you're connected to. So this is just about what you feel you're connected to. And then the second part is uncovering your unique gifts. So what gives you energy and fuels you personally? What is something you would do even if you were not paid to do it? And when time flies by or you lose track, what are you doing? And if your creator came to you in a dream and told you that you were put on this earth for a specific purpose, what would they say it was? And that's how you uncover your unique gifts. And really go past the surface on these. Don't just take, what gives you energy, and then say anything, and start asking a question. Go 3 deep. When you answer the question, then say, what's important about that? Or, how is that, the thing that really does it? Or if not that, then what? So ask yourself more questions. So that was it. That was the Q2 quarter kickoff. So we had some great insight from the panel, some really good information about the market, super important to what we're doing in this business and being the experts that our clients need and want to make sure that you're the professional. So, go out and give the information in a professional manner and be the expert. And then find your why. Because you're not going to do any of this if you don't believe. And I saw you, Rochelle, you were going to say something?
Well, I'm just sitting here thinking, because I'm working on this personally as well, trying to find my why. And I like the fact that, what you presented tonight, is ending on that note, because I think that's, crucial. Yeah. I mean, all the other information, useful, crucial. That's
and it really is. We talk about it a lot in coaching, in that, finding your why makes you committed to something versus being interested in it.
absolutely.
Because, if you're only interested in it, you can give it up. If you're committed to it, then there's no giving up. You'll do everything that you have to in order to achieve it because you believe in it.
Right. And it could be hopefully forever. Yeah.
Right.
I like that a lot.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate not sitting here staring at a blank screen with nobody here. And, if there are any questions you have, feel free to reach out. I'm in the Market Center. You've got my information. I'm the Director of Growth, and Eddie Donnelly, and I really appreciate you. And feel free the slides will be available to you. So I know we have those that we can send out because we want you to have them. That way you can share that information.
Excellent. I was taking photographs of them as you
Okay,
were
good.
posting them. So yeah.
Do you need me to go back to any of them? You got them all?
I got them all, I think.
All right, excellent. Okay, have a great night. Thank you so much.